Hi there, and welcome to the iBAC Tech Trek podcast, where we explore the outer reaches of insurance technology. I'm your science officer on this journey, Tom Reid, and beaming aboard to join me today is Nick Kidd, CEO of Quotey. Hey, Nick, how's it going?
Hey, Tom. Hopefully not ensign Nick Kidd, and I didn't put the red shirt on as the first to die in any Trek
All
show.
of all of our guests eventually get a red shirt, but not right away. So, Nick, do you want to give us a bit of background on yourself and Quotey?
Thanks, Tom. So, I'm Nick Kidd. I usually start this story by saying I'm an insurance guy, not a tech guy. So I've been in the market for now about 30 years, or just coming up for 30 years. A lot of years on the insurer side of the fence, building products, underwriting, pricing, etc. Again, further decent stint on the MGA side of the fence, more work on products and product innovation. And then a couple of stints on the broker side of the fence and several years learning and struggling to sell the products that I've been building all these years. So the general gist is, yeah, after having seen the market from a lot of different perspectives, love insurance like many of us do. We fall into it and fall in love with the industry. But man, I used to get so frustrated by how hard everything had to be. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess reaching the end of my tether with those frustrations, decided to do something about it. And that something ultimately ended up being Quotey.
Awesome. So let's talk about Quotey. What, in fact, does Quotey do? I think there's probably a clue in the name, but maybe you can expand upon that for us.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So I would take a step back and say ultimately what Quotey is doing and continuing to evolve to do is just solve the pain points of being a broker in our market today. So really the first case study of that is helping brokers to better manage the new business cycle. So complete applications far more effortlessly and accurately, get quotes substantially faster than any other process in market, and finally have a far better understanding of what's being offered by those insurers in the quotes that are coming from insurers. So the way we often describe it is being a broker today. There's really two paths. There's I can be really fast but narrow in helping my client by going to a portal, and for what value that has, can certainly provide quick answers and quick solutions for a narrow set of risks in the market. Or I can be thorough by completing an application, sending it out to my 3 or 5 favorite underwriters, and waiting days for quotes to come back. But you can't be both. And so the basic premise and concept of Quotey is to help brokers to be fast and thorough and get back to that sort of core broking skill.
So what lines of business does Quotey currently support?
So primarily commercial, specialty, farm. Uh, I think at last count, we're now quoting for about 700 different classes of business within that. So I guess as brokers might know them as IBC codes or NAICS codes. We started off with your standard contractors, retailers, those kind of regular market classes of business. We've expanded into cyber, into D&O, into E&O, into realty, into hospitality. We have cargo just about to launch. Ultimately, across that, and farm, of course, is another key one we've spent a lot of time building. So across that, yeah, around about 700 classes of business now will receive one, and in many cases, more than one quote after completing an application.
So the tool must, in fact, have to talk to other systems to get some of the information. Can you describe what integrations Quotey has, whether it's with a carrier system or some of the other broker tools that are out there?
Yeah, primarily carrier systems. So we our mission critical is to connect with as many insurers for as many products as we can. We're currently continually working and growing that. And we do that in one of two ways. Either A, we build products on behalf of insurers, to their specifications, or B, where possible, we work with insurer APIs. So that kind of word that comes out all the time, and all the talk is about insurer APIs, and certainly we spend a lot of time consuming them wherever they're available. So that means for certain with insurance companies, when you're completing an application in Quotey, that information is being sent directly to the insurer's system, and they're responding with a quote, which of course gives you the benefit of getting that instant response from the insurance company, and the fact that that quote is likely sitting on the insurer's system if you want to take it further and query it with underwriters, etc.
So that's quite interesting. Let's look at those two scenarios. So you've got the scenario where you've built the product and pricing into Quotey, and then the scenario where you're using API connectivity to get that information from the carrier's system. Is there a difference in experience from your customer's perspective? And secondly, is there a difference in experience from a carrier's perspective, depending on which of these avenues are being used at that point in time?
Yeah, there can be. So certainly from the broker perspective, the connected experience directly with the insurer versus the one where Quotey builds, the connected experience can lead in certain insurers to Quotey having a bind button on the screen. So you get your quote back from the insurance company, there's a bind button. And then if you click that bind button, it can do a number of different things. So for example, it can send an API bind request. So your documents are coming straight back to Quotey in about 10 or 15 seconds, all done and client sorted. We have an insurer where the bind button takes you straight in, logged in to that quote in the insurer's portal, so you can finish it off, deal with the payment method and payment dates, and then click in the portal and get it done. So the end-to-end process can be faster and more efficient. Having said that, we've also solved for that problem in that we build it on our side of the fence solution. So we have insurers where, again, we would be producing the quoting on Quotey, and equally a bind button that produces documents instantly that are produced and generated by Quotey. And then we send them that data on a regular basis behind the scenes so they know who they're insuring. So quite often from a broker perspective, we do whatever we can to minimize the pain of at least getting to bind. So the bind button will get the thing bound. And as far as the broker's concerned, it's done. I've got my client sorted and kind of move on to the next piece. And whether that means the documents are instantly available or they come to you in 1 or 2 weeks, that just depends on the insurer and how it connects. And certainly the feedback we had from brokers is just get me the quotes, get me the information of the quote, get me to bind it. If the documents come in 2 minutes or 2 days, yeah, I'd rather 2 minutes, but arguably I just want to know I'm on risk. This thing is done and I can, start to wrap up my client and get to the next. From an insurer side of the fence, the connectivity is likely a better experience because then essentially the insurer system is being hit by Quotey daily with quote requests. So if we are managing that on our side of the fence, then the insurer will be reliant on data from Quotey, telling them what's going through the marketplace, what's quoting, what's winning, etc. And we're working really hard to get them some great data on the marketplace, its competitiveness, etc. But of course, if the quote is being generated on their system, then they have the ability to power up their own analytics on the process and understand, the throughput, what's going, what they're winning, what they're losing, etc. But without sight of the competitive market analytics. And that's something we're looking to get them, is being able to give insurers empirical data and information on the competitiveness of their products in a marketplace like Quotey.
Well, I'm going to read that back to you with my own sort of spin on it and to get you to tell me whether you agree or don't agree. So I'm obviously biased towards the API connectivity approach, but when I hear that you're doing work to sort of recreate that experience, what it suggests to me is that the API connectivity approach is sort of the baseline best way to do it, but you are able to develop ways on your end to sort of mimic that. So it's extra lift on your part to take the the manufactured side and make it look sort of like the API connectivity side. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Sadly not. I could probably manufacture the product in the rate far quicker than doing it through API. So, we have instances where insurers can give us their information and I can have it up and running and test in about a day or two. And there's just no way you're getting there with an API as quick as you can. And the main reason for that to be honest, it's not so much the programming piece. It's that with an API, from our standpoint, it's a black box, right? And you're just firing information into a black box, and it's very hard to know whether it's doing what you expect it to do. Whereas when the insurer gives you all of their rules and all of their pieces, I'm firing that same information into a known, into a transparent box, and I can just iterate and move so much faster to make it work than having to rely on, hey, insurer, tell me tomorrow or maybe next week whether those quotes I sent you had the right payload in them. So it's faster. But the way we look at it, honestly, is that the future has to be API. Inevitably, every product has to be driven by API rather than manufactured rates. But we know that for most carriers, that API might be, 1, 2, or 3 years away. And bear in mind, when we talk about carriers, when I say insurers, I have a really agnostic term there because I talk about, insurance companies, mutuals, specialty insurance companies, Lloyd syndicates, MGAs, anybody that has products that they can, distribute for any class of business. We bring them all onto Quotey because we know, certainly in this market, that MGA products in commercial are just as important as kind of your traditional regular market because those MGAs are writing so much business of so many different varieties that regular market insurers don't want or aren't competitive for. So the thought of like so many MGAs and startup MGAs being API ready is just not really on their priority roadmap. So that's sort of why we have it. So everything will be API. It has to be. It's inevitable. But in the short term, we can build these manufactured rate solutions as a stopgap. Essentially, we're painting a temporary wall, knowing full well that in 12 to 18 months we're going to knock it down and rebuild the wall. But that's okay because from our perspective, it's quite straightforward. It's quite fast to do. It's a quite efficient process. We can get these things stood up in a matter of days. So we can effectively bring value to our brokers while the API revolution continues.
Yeah, well said. So let's talk about the business impact of Quotey. So I like to look at the business impact in three distinct ways. So one is efficiency and productivity. How do you get more stuff done with the same resource? Secondly, how does the tool improve the client's experience? And how does the tool improve that broker's ability or execution of sales and growth? Maybe talk about those three. Sometimes I like to ask those three questions at the same time because sometimes they're all super interwoven, but I'll let you figure out how you want to respond to that.
Yeah. Okay. So let me talk you through an experience. Is probably the easiest way to understand, the certainly the productivity efficiency piece and the client experience. So let's say I'm a broker. A client walks into my office, or I have an existing client that I want to quote a new line of business to. Let's say I'm trying to quote cyber to an existing client. First step, I'm going to get an application completed, probably some PDF from somewhere that I'm going to send back and forth with the client and get completed, and that's a chunk of work and time spent. Then I'm going to take that PDF. I'm going to probably email it to 2 or 3 different insurance companies after I've found out which insurers are the most likely to win that class of business. I'm then going to wait 2 or 3 days for them to come back with quotes. I'm then going to have to somehow digest those quotes and run some kind of analysis to say, okay, which one is the most likely for my client? Not necessarily the cheapest, but which quote has the best overall, I guess, value, coverage being offered and in respect of prices being quoted. Then I'm going to somehow have to figure out how to get all that information into some kind of email or some kind of document so I can send it on to my client as a recommendation. So that simple process that brokers are doing every single day, multiple times, is what, 2 to 3 days of elapsed time, and certainly, hours of actual work in those, 2 to 3 or maybe even 5 or 6 day period. When you then take Quotey into consideration and doing it on Quotey, complete the application on Quotey. It will tell you the questions that you need to answer. It will literally guide you through the process of this is the information that underwriters are going to need. And certainly for those 700 classes of business, and cyber being one of them in this example, Quotey will instantly get you a couple of quotes from the market, assuming the risk fits and everything there, but you are likely to get at least a couple of quotes back in 15 seconds after completing the application. Within those quotes, you can just click a button and it will give you a full breakdown of every single coverage, every limit, every sublimit, every sort of subjectivity, all of that on screen, comparable side by side. And by the way, separate conversation on cyber, that's virtually impossible to do manually because every insurance company has different definitions, different ways of bundling and describing their coverage. We've taken the time for each of those verticals to build a comparable analytics. So then brokers got a quote or a couple of quotes in 15 seconds. They can see a full breakdown of those quotes, the coverage being offered, etc., the value for money, can click another button and put all that information in a presentation to the client and send it off to them. So to give you that sort of client experience and efficiency piece, the before Quotey 3 to 5 elapsed days and hours worth of work to the after Quotey 15 minutes of sort of completing application and talking to your client. And then while the client is still on the phone, being able to share with them presentations, analysis, multiple quotes is just transformative. So when you round that up across multiple classes of business, and when we talk to our brokers about this, we hear things like certainly 25+% efficiency gain, just because again, doing that for one client is hard. But then, as soon as you're spinning the plate for one client, waiting for markets to come back with quotes, the next client walks in the door and you got to do the same thing, and the next one. So it's an absolute, minefield for brokers today of spinning multiple plates for this process to happen. So we see things like certainly 25% efficiency gains. When we talk to brokers about their ability to grow their commercial business, and I guess we would boil that down to a conversion rate. So taking lead opportunities and turning them into clients. We quite often get between 25 and 50% uplift for brokers using Quotey versus those that aren't. The difference being, again, that if you're able to show the client that you've gone to multiple insurance companies and make smart, intelligent recommendations to them in seconds rather than days, you've really got that client's attention, right? And there's no need for them to then, hey, I'll call you back in 2 to 3 days when I've got quotes from the market. Well, what does the client do? Probably picks the phone up to another broker or another carrier while I'm waiting. I might as well just see what someone else can offer. Quotey just closes that door down so broker can get sold. The client experience, just getting what I want in one phone call or in 1 hour versus days. Not to mention the broker being able to show and the client being able to see all of those difference in coverage. Commercial is a complex purchase. And certainly from a client perspective, there is an element of fear and uncertainty when buying commercial insurance, especially the first time or the first few years. And so being able to instantly see what I get in my package, it is a real lift to the client experience at the end of the journey, rather than, you just had to pay $2,500 for something that someone told you needed to have, and I have a 2 million GL limit, whatever that is. Now I get to see everything in there instantly. So again, a big kind of uplift there.
Very well said. So earlier you talked about, your suppliers as being MGAs and regular carriers and Lloyd's cover holders and et cetera. Are there any major carriers that so far have not yet signed up with Quotey?
We're talking to everybody in the market these days, like everybody from, Intact at one side down to, I don't know who the smallest carrier in Canada is, but, we're talking to pretty much everybody there. And what we find actually is some of the smaller carriers and the mutuals are more tech ready than some of the giants of our industry. There's no carriers, big or small, that are just outright saying, no, we don't believe in this model. We think the reason for that is certainly in the how we do it. We are really conscious to not become a price aggregator. We are absolutely focused on it being a value comparison. and helping to incentivize insurers to build better products, to offer better coverages, better limits, better features, because the broker will be actually able to see them in seconds and comparatively. And what Quotey does is it actually calls out those better things. It shows them on screen for the broker. So we try to bring the broker back to that sort of level of professionalism of you're talking to a client, and during that conversation, you're identifying a whole series of client needs. And at the end of the process, you're able to say to the client, hey, you told me about your business. You told me about you. Thank you very much for that information. Now, here's what I professionally think you need based on my judgment and experience. We can then take those client needs and compare them to what the insurers are quoting. And that really is quite impactful to be able to say, hey, client, you wanted this, or I recommended this, and this. This insurer is offering that coverage. This other insurer is offering all of those things and more, higher blanket limits, more coverages, more features, things that are maybe above your minimum requirements, but are certainly very nice to have coverages and could definitely come in handy. We'll literally call them out with we use sort of pink as our color on Quotey to say, hey, if it comes out with a green traffic light, that's good. The market has done what was expected and quoted what you asked for. If it comes out at red, then we give that broker that immediate view of like, you asked for $100,000 of contractor's equipment, and this market has only quoted 80. So here's a flag, broker, beware. This is something you might have to go into detail with either the client or the broker because there may not be a good fit here. And then we use that pink color to say, hey, here's some stuff that the market's also offering that's above and beyond, higher blanket, whatever it is. Show it on screen because we want markets to do that. We want to change the current paradigm of, especially in small business, markets dropping their prices to compete. And how do they do that? They do that by continually cutting coverages over time, just removing ancillary and maybe non-critical coverages. So insurers build cheaper products with less coverage, which from a broker standpoint is not actually ideal because, of course, one thing, brokers get paid as a percentage of the premium. So premiums dropping too far is not necessarily in broker interest. But also, if insurers are doing that by sacrificing product quality, then that creates a whole world of broker E&O. And not to mention a client at the end of it that sure is maybe getting a cheaper product, but it's more limited in terms of what it covers, and the potential of a client being unaided, unsupported in the time of need, of course, is why this whole industry was created, to avoid that. So that current cycle is not in anyone's interest, and we're working hard to try to reverse it and build it up. I've never had a broker tell me I want to sell on price. Like, it's never happened. They all want to sell on value. They just can't see where it is, especially in a commercial package. Like, pick any three carriers. Their commercial packages are wildly different, or their farm packages, cyber insurance, D&O. The stuff you get in carrier A versus B can be materially different. And so either A, you spend hours reading wordings and somehow make those comparisons manually, and I mean hours and hours and hours doing it, or B, you see it on the screen like Quotey and can immediately see those differences and make the intelligent, informed decisions as a broker.
So that was great, Nick. That was a great dive into how brokers' experience can improve with Quotey. Let's talk about some of the technical considerations. And we're talking about client information here going back and forth, being held in certain places. So security and privacy of that data is is one of the most important aspects here. So can you talk about how Quotey ensures the security of the client's information?
Yeah, I mean, that's just such an important thing these days, right? Like, just days don't pass by when people don't hear about major privacy leaks, and it's a critical issue, and it's absolutely critical for us. So a couple of points here to unpack from that. The first one is ownership of data, and we've made a clear call and decision that the broker owns their data and can do whatever they want with it, frankly. We've seen or heard in the past of brokers having their data in various systems and not being able to unlock it, not being able to analyze it, not being able to pull it out if they leave that system, kind of arguably being held hostage by their data. And so we've taken that decision really early on. Broker owns their data. black and white, no questions asked. If you want to take it out, take it out. If you want to use it for analytics, use it for analytics. Whatever that is, it's yours. So that's sort of the first piece. And then the second piece is the security of that data. So we spend probably an inordinate amount of time and focus and money on various systems and security processes to ensure that what Quotey does is best in class and in line with what the broker might expect to protect their data. And at the core of that, of course, everything is encrypted. Our data is sitting in AWS with AWS encryption. It's encrypted rest, it's encrypted in transit. We have a whole bunch of sort of intrusion detection and monitoring, and virtually every feature you might expect to be switched on or switched on. And we monitor that daily, actually real time. We have various systems that alert us instantly if any of the sort of standard security settings are not operating as they should be expected. So yeah, it's a huge issue. It's something we're constantly focusing on and working on. And
okay, that's great. So let's talk about scale. So you have some brokers who are smaller than others. How does Quotey scale in terms of meeting that larger broker's needs without sort of breaking the bank for the small?
Yeah, it's a real, so Quotey is again something that we thought of in our early days of building and pricing Quotey is we love in our personal lives things like Netflix and Spotify, and essentially it's just a simple monthly license. I sign up and I get Netflix, right? And one day, if Netflix fails to deliver on the quality of content, I just cancel Netflix, and within 30 days, I don't get it anymore, right? Real simple and straightforward and economical. And we sort of thought, well, why shouldn't tech be that way? So a broker, and this happens, sometimes we just get them dropping into our client list of brokers going on to Quotey themselves, never having spoken to us before. After having listened to something like this, they can go on our website, quotey.io. They can click to subscribe. They can create an account in the same way you can create a Netflix account. Then you can start adding users on your side, and whether you're adding, yourself and one user, or whether you're adding, 50 or 100 or more, it doesn't matter. You just kind of, add them in, and you have full control of that. So yeah, it's extremely scalable, whether you're a broker of one or a broker of 1,000. It really doesn't matter.
So you just raised a really interesting point, because I'm used to technology that requires, X amount of work for implementation, training, setup, and you just indicated that Quotey users can self-sign up. So maybe talk me through that whole go live process. I want to have Quotey to, hey, it's working in my office. How does that work, and what support do you guys provide for that?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I mean, in theory, it's a broker could do it, get on board, get set up and using it and configure it themselves in sort of minutes and be using it. More traditionally, of course, there's a process where we'd help the broker understand what Quotey does. We'd help them sign up. Once they sign up, we have an onboarding team and process and workflow that helps to train, onboard, and create that broker engagement that just grows over time. We know that it's not necessarily a one-shot deal, and that's something we're continually evolving and learning from, in that there's a lot of moving pieces in Quotey, and you can't just get everybody's attention span and jump on a 1-hour training call and do it, right? Otherwise, you just get people get lost in the process. However intuitive it is, it does need the walkthrough. So typically, we would set that up. We have an onboarding process. It starts with just getting the brokerage involved and familiar with basic concepts, and then it evolves over time to layer on additional features and functionality that is kind of essential to long-term broker engagement. We currently do all of that as part of our package. There's no sign up fee. There's no onboarding fee. There's no training cost. At some point those things might evolve and change, but right now there's absolutely no cost, no barriers to getting on board, and equally no minimum contract period, no cancellation fee. So If you're a broker and you use Quotey, and for whatever reason it doesn't fulfill the needs of your brokerage and you don't get the sort of ROI you were expecting, then of course, shame from our perspective, but we'll work with you to offboard you, and just like Netflix, cancel your subscription. It really is that easy. From a cost standpoint, it's a bit of an interesting story. We did start this process way back, and the original thought is, well, what if we just gave it away for free and kind of used it at least for the purpose of allowing brokers to complete applications, and the sort of, a free tier or free layer of using Quotey. And then perhaps there's sort of a paywall if you want to see the quotes come in and you want to do the comparisons and various other things. And the problem we had is, as soon as we started talking free, we just, brokers had no idea what was going on. They're just not used to that. And so, like, hey, okay, what's the catch? What's the whatever? And there wasn't one, but it became far easier. Rather than going through that process, we just said, okay, fine, it's $10 per user per month. It's really simple. It's stackable and scalable. And that's where we still are.
Let's maybe wrap this up. You give me a bit of a prognostication, which is my 25-cent word of the day. Where do you see Quotey in a couple of years? Like, is this ubiquitous across the broker space? You've got every carrier integrated with APIs. What does Quotey look like in 2 years?
Yeah, continuing main mission of just connecting as many products and insurers as humanly possible, so Quotey can just become a marketplace for everything for brokers across Canada. So that's a journey. It takes time. It takes persistence. We've gone from one broker and one carrier to 120 plus brokerages and 25 carriers on board, and so the journey and the process has gone really well, and we expect that to continue. So that's the first, always on, always focus, always priority from our perspective. Then we continue to support brokers in other ways. One of the key ones that we're working on right now is around renewals, because sure, we tackle and we deal really nicely with the new business process, but fundamentally the same things exist at renewal. Every renewal is an opportunity to resell your client, and a lot of work goes into that process from a broker of getting updated apps and correct apps and going out to market where necessary. And again, these are things that we can automate, or certainly automate the most part of, and so brokers are going to see a lot of activity in terms of client service, client management, and renewal management coming out of Quotey, because I'm confident we can be equally transformative. And then the other piece that is coming is, and actually live now in pilot, is BMS integration. So giving the broker that choice of being able to do everything Quotey does as their hopefully system of choice, because it just makes life so easy for them, and then have all of that information automatically, without clicking a button, just reflected and updated in their BMS. And it's actually really cool. You can actually, out of the box, customize your integration to the BMS, and so it's another thing you could arguably do without talking to us. And we have that working in pilot with one of our major brokers who's sort of spearheading that thinking and process, and we're really excited about getting that through to their live environment, and then having similar with other BMSs. So we're talking to every major BMS in Canada. And next little short one that's about to hit for us, which is really exciting, is Quebec and French. So we've been working really hard behind the scenes to get Quotey ready for the entirety of Canada. We're a Canadian company. We love the entire market, and we want to be there to support the entire market. And so that's coming very soon. So prognosticating, I guess, also a new word to me. I would see that sort of 2 years down the lane, that we continue to build substantial value to brokers to transform the entire value chain of how they support their clients. Let them onboard easier, more efficiently, better, win more clients, keep more clients for far less effort.
The world of insurance is changing because the world of tech is changing. Join us on the journey at ibactech.ca.